Um, so, so the idea of let's see, we have one more. Okay. So the idea of this meeting was just to see how many people are interested in a membership sort of a thing, where I'll be holding a weekly webinar, possibly on Saturdays or Sundays. But I just go through a list of stocks, maybe U.S. stocks as well as Indian stocks. Depends on what the participation mix is. And then I'll answer questions and see if the members have anything about any particular stocks they want to get analyzed. Again, this is only for educational purposes. I got to say that, forgot to say it, but only for educational purposes. Do not recommend buying and selling on this advice. So this is just analysis of stocks. So keep that in mind. Also, we can look at future on commodities like gold, silver. We can look at that. We can look at some currencies and so on and so forth. During the membership period, we can even go through any options questions you have, and we can look at that too. So that was the reason for creating the membership. Again, I really want to see the interest in there before I commit to it. So even if I start the membership, it'll probably be for like a month or a couple of months to see what the participation rate is. If I don't find it it's worth the time, then I probably will discontinue it. That is the reason I have kept it at only $20 a month. So the fee is really low, so many people can join in. So. But if that doesn't garner any participation, then again, it's really we'll have to think about that in the future. So having said that, without out of the way, let us look at the markets here. We'll start with the Indian market first. Again, anytime you have questions, just feel free to put your question down in the chat box. I have muted people, so there's not too much commotion in here. But you can put your questions in the chat box, and once I'm done, I'll go through the chat and see if I already have somebody send me an email to cover some questions, so I'll do that as well. Looking at the Nifty, we're looking at the weekly chart here. For those who are familiar with Ichimoku, not sure how many of you have taken my class, but we have a flat Kijun right here on the weekly chart. So at this point, there really doesn't seem to be much impetus either way. We have a trending Kumo, so the chance of the bears breaking it to the downside is also there. However, we are in a bullish Kumo, so we need to look for bullish positions. Okay, so that's the basis. It's a bullish Kumo on the weekly charts. You need to look for bullish positions. However, keep in mind that this is the high, 26-week high, and that is the 26-week low, both of which are not going to be moving anytime soon. The high is not going to break until Nifty crosses 1160 or whatever it is up there, and the low is not going to break until it drops below 10,000. So given both of them are not going to move, the Kijun is not going to move. As we know, the flat Kijun is a magnet. So it would be very difficult for the bulls to take this up or the bears to take this down given this condition here. So I would expect some more consolidation. Chicago is free at this point under the candles, so it is a little bearish. So you have some bullish criteria, some bearish criteria. It's just not a good market for being very aggressive. Okay. Having said that, let's look at the daily chart. Okay. All right. Here's the daily chart of the Nifty. Notice the Chicago on the daily is going to bump into these candles here. Not a very good idea for great momentum to the upside. However, once you clear this area of 10,000 or I would say 11,000, there is a scope to play on the daily chart to the upside. Remember, you're only looking for bullish positions because you're bullish on the weekly. Always keep that in mind. So here you have some chance to play on the weekly. Your next probably you're going to have some resistance right there. Obviously, the all-time highs are going to present your resistance levels. As you know, these Kumo shadows are going to give you some resistance. So once you clear this resistance here, you could probably be able to take a trade up to this 288 or 292 area. But again, keep in mind, it's not going to be too aggressive. Don't be too aggressive with the position, as you are limited by the weekly Kijun here as a magnet. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so what I've done here is, by the way, this software is Chart Nexus. It allows you to, it has the Ichimoku indicator on it, so that's why I chose this one. It allows you to make watch lists here on the side, if you can see. So I've just made some watch lists, and we can quickly run down these stocks. Aarti Industries. Here's a bullish stock. At this point, notice how it. This is a daily chart. We can start with the weekly. Nice bullish stock on the weekly, no problems there. So then you look at your daily chart. Held support on the Kijun, nice support. But really, if for those who have taken my course, you go through the Chicago breakout strategy. Very nice place here to get in the trade. As the Chicago broke out, you continue to hold this stock until you close below the Kijun. So at this point, I would not be afraid to buy this stock above these highs. You could also be doing a J-hook kind of a pattern or an ABC pattern, where you have leg 1, leg 2, and the leg 3 would be about the same height as the leg 1. So you would always use the Kijun as a stop in the Chicago breakout strategy. A-band software, bearish. If you look at the weekly bearish chart, if this one is, I'm not sure if this one has options or options on it or not. Somebody needs to check that. But if there is an option, wouldn't be afraid to buy some put options in it to the downside, or shorting this stock to the downside. Let's look at the daily. Oh, no liquid options. Okay, then the only condition here would be to short the stock. Again, what are some of the good places you could have been shorting the stock? Back here, again, the Chicago breakdown strategy, right? Chicago broke out from the cloud, anywhere down here, with a, especially right in this area, where it failed at the Kijun and the Tenkan both. So and the Chicago broke out. Very nice place to short the stock if it's shortable. Again, I'm just going with the premise that things are as shortable here in India. I know some of the stocks are not, as they are here in the US. In the US, it's really easy to short stocks. So you're going to have to look at if it's even possible to short this or not. But again, this one is trying to come to the position where you can again use the Chicago breakdown strategy. As it starts going down, I would not be afraid to short below this area for another move down. ACC, very junky. I would not want to play this one. It's very easy to draw a trend line on this guy, making like a triangle. I would watch for a breakout below this level or above this level, and see if I can play it that way. Really don't want to use Ichimoku in this one. Yeah, the only the question is, we don't do multiple time frame analysis. What we usually do is I usually just look at the weekly and the daily. If the weekly is bearish, I'm going to look for bearish signs. If the weekly is bullish, I'm looking for bullish trades on the daily. At this point, this is a bearish stock. It's below on the weekly charts, and notice that your major resistance here is Seneca B, the top of the Kumo. It's going to have difficulty. Also notice one more thing here. See how the flat Kijun? That flat Kijun is a magnet for these prices. Notice how the prices are just bobbling around this flat one, right? Same thing that you notice on the Nifty. So the flat areas are a magnet to the prices. So keep that in mind. Would I trade this stock only if it breaks below this guy, or probably if it breaks above this one? So once it breaks above the triangle, you'll want to see it break above the Kumo as well. Let's see, Adani Enterprises. Let's look at the weekly. Again, bearish on the weekly, but a very thin Kumo. Notice again back here, flat Kijun. Notice how it brings back prices to itself, right? So at this point, the only scenario I'm looking for is a short. In this case, I can go to the daily, and the daily looks shortable at this point. Chicago has broken down here. If you short this on weakness below these levels here, 145.5, I would make this your target. Can you explain this magnet concept a little detail if possible? Okay, well, according to the Japanese, according to the Ichimoku theory, whenever you have a flat area of the Tenkan and the Kijun, the Tenkan are not so much, the blue line here is the Tenkan. Again, I don't want to go into the details of the Ichimoku stuff. If you want, there is a Ichimoku course that I teach, and it has been really popular in Indian markets. That we go in detail into all these strategies and this flatness. But having said that, any flat area, especially the Kijun, the purple line here, and the Senecal B, which is the 52-week average of the high and low, those two are the main lines in which if I see a flat area, I would want to see, I say that the prices are attracted to it, just like here. Notice here, this is the Kijun. Notice how the prices are bobbing back and forth, and then this is Senecal B. Notice how it's provided support here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 days here continuous either support. Once support is broken, it becomes resistance. And the next few days here, they acted as resistance. Now you're starting to go lower, and the Chicago is breaking out. At this point, I would not be afraid to short this on weakness. Okay. Adani Power. Adani Power, looking at the weekly, is bullish. So I would be looking at bullish trades on Adani Power. And then looking at the daily, I would want to see this. Oh, this one could be a potential Chicago breakout strategy. I would want to see this guy about at least 54, 55 area. So once this comes out of the Kumo, you'll have the Chicago breaking out, and that would be start of an excellent trade. The first targets would be these highs. Once it breaks that, it could also be nice fry pan breakout. In which case you'll have the depth of this fry pan. You'll extrapolate and get your next target. So this one is a good candidate to keep on your watch list. ADF Foods. Let's look at weekly. Immediately you can see that you have heavy resistance at the Kumo, right? So all these cannot get away from this magnet of the Kumo. So until that condition changes, I would not be trading this guy. Also, it is in the clouds here. In the clouds means it's consolidating, so I would avoid this guy. Aegis Logistics. On the weekly, it is below the Kumo, failing at the Kijun and the Tenkan both. I would not be afraid to short this guy below these lows of 185 on the weekly. Looking at the daily, again, you don't want to short it at this place here because the Chicago could run into congestion area. So this won't be a very high probability thing. So I would continue to monitor this, maybe short below these lows. Next one would be Alembic Pharma. Consolidating, you can see the Kumo going back and forth. This is in consolidation on the daily. Weekly is, again, look at the Chicago going to bump into all this resistance. I would avoid this stock. Allahabad Bank, you also, well, let's look at the weekly first. Weekly, notice the Chicago, what's it doing on the weekly? It is bumping into resistance, and I would not want to trade this one until the Chicago is cleared. So some of the charts, if you notice, it doesn't take you more than a couple of seconds to really throw the chart out, right? I mean, the analysis takes 2 or 3 seconds. So once you analyze in your first glance that it's okay to proceed forward, then you can do some in-depth analysis. But as soon as I see a chart like this on the weekly, I don't want to play it because the Chicago is bumping into all these candles here. Anantraj, again, daily looks really congested with the Chicago in here. Let's look at the weekly. Weekly is okay. You got to look for bearish trades on the daily. But I will not be trading this one until it breaks down into the 32 area, 33, 32.5 area. Once it comes out of the cloud on the daily, then this might be a shorting candidate.
Hello, can you hear me?
Andhra Bank, again bearish on the daily, on the weekly. Chicago is free at this point, so you look at bearish trades on the daily. It is above the clouds on the daily, so it is bullish here. So I would want to see it break the cloud, the Chicago breaking below the candles and coming down here. So once it breaks the cloud and the Chicago is free, this can be shorted. Your target would be down here into the 26 area. Let's see, Aptic. Aptic is bearish on the weekly. However, notice that it is now trying to support on the Kijun. It's a flat Kijun. In another few weeks, in another 2 or 3 weeks, the Kijun is going to drop. It's going to lose its flatness. Okay. So at that point, there's a lot of space for the Chicago to run towards these candles. So you would have breathing space or a tradable area on the weekly as a long. Okay, even though it's bearish, this is going to be for aggressive traders. It is supporting on the Kijun. The Kijun in another 2 weeks is going to lose its flatness, the magnetic property, and then it has a chance to bounce. So where would you play this on the daily? On the daily, it is bullish on the daily at this point. However, notice that the Chicago is running into congestion. So I would want to see it above these levels of 2. Okay, once it goes above these levels of 209, there might be a chance to play on the long side. And keep in mind, 209 here. Let me draw this guy. There's a big Kumo shadow right here. Keep that in mind. There's 2 more shadows here, here, and the major one here. So those are all your resistance levels at that point. Let's see, Arvind. Not sure what's going on with this guy. Maybe they had a break or a split or what. So I'm going to leave that one. Asian Paints. Let's look at the weekly chart. Weekly is bullish. However, notice that the Chicago is bumping into candles. So until for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 4 or 5 weeks, I don't even want to look at this stock. The only way to look at this stock would be in the next 2, 3 weeks if it breaks above 15 or rather 1450, 1470. If they can break it here, then Chicago would be clear. At this point, it would do this, and Chicago would be clear. That would also then take the Kijun up, and it will start trending. So that's the only way to look at Asian Paints. Let's see, Oro Pharma. Weekly is bullish. You still have time before the Chicago can run into congestion. So you're looking at for bullish trades. Let's look at the daily congestion. At this point, I would want to see at least above this level, above the 795 level, and then that would be your target, your first target. So you would want to buy it only above the 795. Bajaj Auto. On the weekly, it is bearish, but notice Chicago is running into congestion area here. So until that changes, I do not want to look at this stock. Bajaj Finance. Let's look at the weekly. Okay. This one is coming out, but it is bearish on especially as for the Chicago. You might still have a play area here on the daily, but notice again that you have your highs, 26 weekly high here, 26 weekly low here, right? So once you have that, again, your keygen is flat, it's not going to move, the prices are going to attract back to that guy. So until that changes, I really don't want to change. And how are they going to change on the weekly? They won't change until the weekly until the Chicago, at least until for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before these highs keep dropping and the keygen drops. Only that point. So this one, keep on your watch list, but again, there is really no impetus for buying this stock because the prices will still be drawn towards this area. Bank of India, let's look at the weekly. Here's Bank of India. Chicago broke up above these candles back here, and the price broke up above the weekly keygen. So notice in this, even though it's bearish, you still have a play area at that point once the Chicago breaks up above this, and it's not going to run into candles on the weekly chart, and you are above the keygen and the Tenkan, and you have a good distance to the Kumo. There is a good playable chance, right? That's a tradable scenario. So then you look at the daily, and this is an excellent Chicago breakout point. That was a perfect point to buy it for a nice run up. At this point, it's probably going to consolidate until it hits this Kumo, and then you might get another chance. But by that time, you're going to have to look at the weekly chart again and see where it's consolidating. If this Chicago is bumping into these candles, there's going to be no momentum for the stock. So it's, as you can see, it's a play between the weekly and the daily. You need to realize where the weekly Chicago is, where the weekly Tenkan is, where the weekly keygen is, and that's how you decide on your trade on the daily chart. Bank of Maharashtra on the weekly. Okay, so here's another thing. Remember, in the last chart we saw the candles had broken up above the keygen, right? And we said it was a tradable bounce. But in this case, notice that it had done that also back here, right? Also back here. So what is different here than that chart? The difference is the Chicago, right? When these candles were forming on the weekly, the Chicago was bumping into these candles, right? That's the difference. You do not want to take this trade because the Chicago is not free. It doesn't have momentum. Your stock is momentumless. So why indulge in that stock, right? At this point, the Chicago is free on the weekly. You're free here, right? It's a tradable bounce. So then you look at your daily, right? In this area, your Chicago is free here. You could be playing this bounce, right? At this point, it is supporting on the keygen. You definitely don't want to see this close below the keygen if you're playing a Chicago breakout strategy. Bata India, bullish on the weekly. You look at bullish strategies on the daily. This one was also a nice Chicago breakout here. Notice it held the keygen. No closing below the keygen on this one. So some of the stocks which are bullish and bullish on the weekly, they have given you really nice signals to play on the daily. Here's BEML. Let's look at the weekly. BEML is below the Kumo, so it is bearish on the weekly. Chicago did break out here, and it was free back here because these candles were far away, so you could have played this bounce. So let's see if that bounce on the daily was playable. It was playable here as the Chicago broke out from here. This was a nice place to buy. Oops. As it appears this high, realizing that this is resistance, that would have been a first target, right? Have one more target right there. One more target right there. So keeping those in mind, you could have played this bounce. Bharat Forge, bearish on the weekly. Look for bearish trades on the daily. Nice Chicago breakdown here. Notice that you have a kicker signal to the downside, a bearish kicker to the downside. So you have a lot of conditions coming together. You have your Chicago breakout, a bearish kicker failing at the Kijun here, and it's bearish on the weekly. So this one, really nice place to short it. Bharat Petroleum. Looking at the weekly, it is bearish in nature. Notice the Chicago is still below the candles. At this point, I would think it's a tradable bounce if you can see a good picture on the daily, because the Chicago still is, there's still free room here. You have to be very aggressive though and monitor this on the weekly chart. Let's look at the daily. Here's the daily. I would want to buy it above these levels. I would expect some more consolidation here, and then I would expect the Chicago somewhere coming out here to break out, and then you could do a breakout of this level. So watch for this one though on the weekly. You don't want to see the Chicago on the weekly running into these candles. Okay? Bale, junkie. Tail. Okay, as I said, this is junky. Look at the Chicago. No momentum in this stock. If at all the momentum comes out, if the Chicago does this, because the price is doing that, I would look at the stock after that. But at this point, it is in a congestion area. I don't want short or definitely not buy. Canara Bank. Canara Bank bearish on the weekly. Chicago running into resistance here. I don't want to do anything with this stock at this point. Central Bank. It is bearish here on the weekly, but notice that the Chicago is free. There's really nothing to stop the Chicago, the momentum here, either way. You are, at this point, you are back here. The Kijun, the weekly Kijun is up here at 52. Notice that the Kijun is going to drop in price in another 2 weeks. And then in another 4 weeks after that, it's going to still drop in price. So there is still a tradable bounce from 36 to 52. So you could possibly look at a bullish scenario. You definitely can short it below these levels. But to look for a bullish scenario, it's in the price is inside the Kumo at this point, so you really don't want to see it. You really don't want to trade it until it comes out of the Kumo. Once it comes out of the Kumo, it really depends on what the Chicago does. If the Chicago goes into this congestion area, you don't want to be trading that. You could keep it on your watch list, see if this one does a breakout, and you can do a Chicago breakout strategy on this gap. So keep this on the watch list. It's not ready yet. Let's see, CESC. Bearish on the weekly, facing a little resistance here at the weekly Tenkan. Chicago is free, so there is a chance for you to do a bullish on this guy. However, there's absolutely no chance to do a bullish on the daily chart. It is below the daily Kumo as well, and the Kijun flat, it's not going to move until at least another week. So really nothing to do on this one. Coal India, bearish on the weekly, got to look for bearish trades. And this one can be shorted below these levels. Corporation Bank, bearish on the weekly, Chicago running into this resistance area. Do not want to do anything here. Let's go to DB Realty. Okay, DB Realty bearish on the weekly. Chicago does have some room here, so you might have some momentum as the stock is supporting on the Kijun on the weekly. So this one you could keep on your watch list. It probably is not ready on the daily. Let's see. Yeah, it's below the Tenkan and the Kijun at this point, and the Chicago going to run into resistance. But if this consolidates sideways and then the Chicago finally comes out here, you might get a chance. It is definitely not ready at this point. You don't want to short here either because the Chicago might find support on these candles. So keep this on the watch list, but it's not ready to be traded. Excuse me. All right, what's the time here? 11. I'll do a few more stocks and then we can go to look at some currencies maybe. And then I'll take questions from you. Here's a nice chart for Dhanlakshmi Bank. Let's see on the weekly. Chicago bumping into resistance. But in the next 2 weeks, this might come out of this congestion area if they can close the stock about $18, $19 or 18, 19 rupees. And on the daily, if they close about the 18, 19 level, you have a nice fry pan setting up too. So watch for them closing about the 18.8 or 19 area. I would place a small long position in this at that point. Which one? What else can I do? Delta Corp. Bearish on the weekly. You have again the same scenario here. Chicago running into resistance. You have 26-week high here and 26-week low here. You're going to have a flat Kijun. No point in trading this guy. DLF. Flat Kijun again on this one too. Bearish on the weekly. You have your weekly high here, weekly lows here. They ain't moving for the next plenty of weeks. So you're going to have be just trading sideways at this point. No momentum in this guy. Dr. Reddy's. Weekly is bullish at this point on Dr. Reddy's. So Chicago is free. You could look at the daily. Daily is not ready. Look at the Chicago bumping into all this congestion area, but definitely worth keeping on the watch list for a close about the 2670 area. If it does that, you could take a Chicago breakout strategy at this point with these highs as your target. So let's see. HDFC. HDFC is bullish on the weekly, so you're looking for bullish strategies. Notice the Chicago has 2 more weeks for it to, assuming the price stays here, the Chicago will have another couple of weeks to break out. At that point, if the price can make a new high, then you might drag the Kijun up with it, and you might start trending it if the price continues moving higher. So, see, I usually don't look at the monthly charts. I go with only the weekly and the daily. My trades don't really last that long to look at the monthly. So I usually just go with the weekly and the daily. But you could look at the monthly too. No harm in that. So you could look at the monthly too. If you are really looking at the really long-term charts, then that can be useful. Hindalco is bearish on the weekly, so I look for bearish charts. And again, the Chicago probably will be free in another 2 weeks to the downside. At that point, I would not be afraid to short this one below these lows. Look for a shorting opportunity on the daily. Hindustan Unilever, bullish on the weekly, so look for bullish strategies, but the Chicago is running into this resistance at least for the next so many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks at least. I would expect to see consolidation on the chart here. Again, when I say consolidation, for those familiar with options, you could use strategies which take advantage of consolidating positions. Okay, so something like this, or the previous positions that we saw where you have a flat Kijun and the Chicago is bumping into resistance, you could use options to sell some put credit spreads or call credit spreads and earn some income in that one. Okay, so it's not. But for those who just play the stocks, buying and selling, that's a difficult position. You got to have to wait or try to find stocks which are free at that point to buy. But options gives you a whole different world to explore. ICICI Bank. Looking at the weekly here, bullish, so we can find bullish opportunities on the daily. And at this point, Chicago is free, however, it's trending down here. I would expect some consolidation and finally the Chicago to turn up. So you can keep this one on the watch list. I would not be afraid to buy over these highs of 384. Let's see. How to shortlist stocks or to follow to select stocks? That's a difficult one. In the U.S. markets, you have different screeners. This is a Ameritrade, a brokerage in the U.S. here, which has scanning things, and you can add filters. Okay, and you can make your own queries. And you can use Ichimoku in there. I am not sure if there are things in the Indian market which allow you to do that. You could probably make one software if you are in the software field. Again, it's the brokerages there. They are still catching up in as far as the options capabilities and all these kind of scanners and filters. So if I look at a query. So I can custom query here. I don't know if you can see it. I think you can. So I can say whether the close is greater than the Kijun and the close is greater than the Tenkan, and the close one day before was less than the Tenkan, and the Tenkan is greater than the Kijun, and the Shikao is greater than the candles 26 days ago. So I can make a query like this and run a scan, and it will give me all those things that are matching that criteria, and say that is a bullish scenario. I can make the same thing for a bearish scenario. I am not aware of any charts or a scanning software in India that does that on the Indian stocks. Okay, so if screeners are available, you're gonna have to just make your own in that case. What is the Tenkan, right? You know what the Tenkan is, you know what the Kijun is. So even though the screener might not have a definition in there where you can directly use the Tenkan, you can make that in India too. Okay. So yeah, you can make the query where you say that the average of the last 9 days high and the low, if that's greater than the average of the last 26-day high and low, essentially you're saying the Tenkan is higher than the Kijun, right? So you can make your query like that and then build a list of yes, that was think or swim that I just showed. Somebody asked me about that. So okay, so you can make a query like that and find the stocks. So that is what I do. I mostly trade options. I don't really buy and sell stocks directly. Plenty of ways to make money in options here using Ichimoku and candlesticks. Also do non-directional trading at that point. So, but again, to answer your question in short, yes, you're going to have to write a screener like that to get those candidates. IFCI in the weekly, it is the Chicago is bumping here against these candles. Also, the candles are attracted to the flat Kijun. Really, nothing to do there. This one I would be able to buy some puts or short it below these levels, but at this point, really nothing to do. Stocks, okay, here's a question I'm reading. Stocks which have green clouds on monthly basis and have bullish prices are safest to bet on. Yes, if you're looking at the monthly chart and it's bullish, then you're looking for bullish to be bullish on the weekly chart as well. So if you are looking at the monthly chart, then you have to drill down on the weekly chart. Okay, if the weekly chart is bullish, now you might want to be a longer term trader and just use the weekly as your trading time frame, right? There's really no reason to go to the daily unless you're swing trading. If you're a long term trader, here's the long term trading, right? On the long term thing, you can do a Kumo breakout strategy. The stock's broken below the Kijun and the Chicago breaking down below the Kijun. You can short this guy at about 165. You continue to hold this till now. So you can use the monthly and the weekly if you want to. Any number of ways you can do it. You can do the daily and you can use the 4 hour. You can use the weekly and you can use the daily. It's just that you need one time frame more to make sure you're riding in at least that wave, right? You don't want to be bearish on the weekly and trying to do bullish on the daily chart, unless some of the examples that I've just shown you, where there is a really good tradable range. Most of the stocks you're not going to find like that. There might be some stocks where the range is tradable, where conditions are okay on the weekly, even though it's bearish, to go long. Okay, so you just have to find that. Is Chicago breakout your preferred strategy? Yes, Chicago breakout is my preferred strategy. Yeah, we go in details in the Ichimoku course in that strategy, but that is by far my favorite, along with the Kumo breaks. Kumo break, as I say, is more for the longer term. Chicago breakout is more for swing trading. All right, last one. Let's look at one more here, and then I'm going to. By this strategy, we need to enter and exit on basis of daily chart. Yes, on the Chicago breakout, if I'm using it, again, if you're using the monthly and the weekly and you're a longer term trader, you can use it on the weekly chart. Use the same strategy, same conditions on the weekly chart. I just use it on the daily chart because I look at the weekly as my bigger picture and the daily as my trading picture. So that's what I do. So. All right, so here's which one is this one? IOB weekly chart. Notice the Chicago bumping into resistance, flat. If the Chicago has resistance, the stock's not going anywhere. Okay, so again, the flat Kijun and the Chicago bumping into resistance. Too many synchronous things here to keep the stock from going up. Okay, so at this point, nothing to do there. So all right, so here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to switch to Thinkorswim platform here and just look at one more question: how to book profits as they accumulate. If continuously booking profit, then in uptrend continues, we are out of the stock. Okay, I'm just for others who are not following, I'm just reading a question: how to book profit as they accumulate. The way to do it is depends on what strategy you're using, Siddharth. For example. Here's Apple, right? And again, really the underlying ticker really does not matter. It can be an Indian stock, it can be a US stock, it can be a German stock, anything. So for Kumo break, there are two ways to do it for a Kumo break. The way I recommend my students is they take 25% of the, here's the Kumo break strategy, okay? I would buy here on this one, or rather back here. Let me get my pointer. All right. So here's the Kumo break strategy. I am buying the stock here. My first stop loss is below the Kumo. As long as it doesn't violate that, I'm okay. And then I just keep holding the stock. This is a daily chart, by the way. I keep holding the stock. I take 25% every time it closes below the Kijun. Okay. I disregard the Tenkan in the Kumo break strategy. Okay. And again, I go into details in the course. Don't have time here to go into all the details, but for the stop loss for the Kumo break, I disregard the Tenkan at this point. If it closes below the Kijun, I take 25% off. Okay, so let's say it closes below the Kijun right here, rather right here, take 25% off. It closes below the Kijun right here, take another 25% off. It closes below the Kijun, take another 25% off. And the last 25% you only close when it closes below the Kumo. Okay, you keep riding. Now notice in this case, you would have been better off taking your profits, but that's okay. That your goal is never to take off at the top or get in at the bottom. Okay, you're just trying to do a trend. Ichimoku is a trending system. So that's for the Kumo break. You continue to hold. Yes, absolutely. As a trader, Siddhartha, the faster you realize this, the easier it will be on you. As a trader, you're never targeting the top, you're never targeting the bottom. Okay, you're trying to take the meat in the middle. Okay, leave the top and the bottom to the professionals. Okay, so leave that to the professionals. So again, this is just the way I do it. You could say that you are going to keep taking profits 25, 25, 25, 25 every time it closes below the key chain. So you can take one here, take one here, take one here, and finally close position here. No problem with that. Okay, it's just individual preference. This is just one way of doing it. Okay, I just like to ride it. Till the end. So, can you provide more details about the course which you're referring? This is the Ichimoku course. If you go to my website, I can show the website. Hold on one second. Yeah. Normal 10. Give me a second. Item Firefox Supply. If you go to profitablecandlestickcharting.com and go to courses, Ichimoku course, this is what I'm referring to, and you can sign up. This is a one-on-one course most of the time. I don't advertise that much, hardly at all, in fact. This is usually a one-on-one. You get the benefit of a private coaching, and this usually takes about 4 hours, usually held on weekends in the evening in India. And this has been a really popular course compared to the candlestick courses. A lot of people are doing Ichimoku at this point. So if you want to, you can always sign up, and we can schedule the course on a weekend on a mutually satisfactory time. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, let's get this. Erase all drawings. All right. So looking at, let's look at gold. Looking at gold here, notice the Kumos, right? This is the daily chart. Notice the Kumos, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish. What is it telling you, right? It's consolidating. So you don't want to be doing. It's not going to be a trending thing. It's going to be consolidation. So this is a weekly chart. So you can draw these highs, you can draw these lows, and just if you want to play it that way, you can do it. There's really no point in using Ichimoku for a consolidating stock. Let's look at SPX, which is the S&P 500. Here's the S&P 500. It broke down below the weekly Kumo, and it's trying to enter the Kumo at this point. Chicago is free. It has the room to run, but there's a trend line coming down here. I would be watching this trend line if they fail here. Okay. So there's still probably another 30-40 points to the upside here before the trend line is hit, and we'll have to watch what happens at that point. Let's look at oil. Here's the weekly chart of oil, bearish right now. It's below the Kumo. Notice that the weekly highs are around October 1 of last year, which gives it at least 10 more weeks for the Chicago to approach that point and for the highs to keep dropping. So at that point, the Kijun will move. But until another 10 weeks, this Kijun is not going to move. Okay, it's going to be flat. And there's a good chance for oil to come up to this 59.63 area to test that flat price. So I would look for bullish opportunity here on the daily. If I go to the daily chart, here's the daily chart. But notice now that we are bumping on the daily at the bottom of the cloud, so really not a good way to trade it. Chicago is free. If you have to trade it, you should do it with less capital. drop your position size down and make sure that you're taking your profits when it hits the upper Seneca B. Okay, that's the primary resistance here. If it goes in here, you better make sure that you take profits at that point. Looking at euro. Here's the weekly chart of the euro, bearish in nature, failing at this weekly Kijun. Here's the problem with the euro now. If it trades sideways, the Kijun is going to bump into these candles. So I would want to watch for a break below 1.31. If that happens on a closing basis, then you have the Chicago free, and I would not hesitate to short the euro down. Okay, but at this point, if this runs sideways, the Chicago will be facing resistance. So you could basically set your stop loss, rather a buy order below these levels, maybe 1.29 or 1.28, something like that. If they do break it down, the Kijun is going to start trending down, and the Chicago is going to be free, and at that point it could be the next leg down. So watch for a downward move here on the euro. About the yen, the weekly on the yen looks, notice the charts here, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, consolidating. At this point it is supporting on the weekly Tenkan Kijun. For aggressive traders, you could look for a buying opportunity here, set your stop below the weekly Tenkan Kijun. That way your stop loss is minimal. Let's look at the daily. Here's the daily. Notice that at this point, it's run up so far, it's probably going to consolidate, come here towards the cloud. By that time, the Chicago will bump into these candles. The really good place to buy it would be above these highs of 0.0093. At that point, the Chicago might break out, and you might have the next leg up. If the yen starts breaking higher, that would spell trouble for the US stocks and hence most stocks worldwide. Because yen is considered the safe haven, so keep that in mind. Let's see, what else can we look at? /6 Swiss francs. Here's the weekly chart. Notice bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish. Just consolidation. Really nothing to do here. I would be interested in shorting the Swiss franc below these levels of 0.996 or 0.995. At that point, Chicago will be free, and then the next target would be these lows down here, 0.97. Let's see, and some stocks like, let's see, as we looked at Apple. Apple weekly bearish, but notice that the Kijun is up here. It's not going to move until these lows or the highs are move, which is going to take a long time at this point. So there is a scope for Apple to rally up. I would definitely want to short Apple if it would break below 143. But for buying it, you need to look at the daily chart. I would definitely want to see it close above the Tenkan and the Kijun, and then use the Tenkan and the Kijun as a stop for a aggressive move up. Okay, let's see, what do we have here? All right, somebody's asked me, can you look at WIN, LR, CX, and target? Okay, let's look at WIN. Let's look at the weekly first. Here's the weekly. They are supporting here on the Tenkan, on the weekly Tenkan. Chicago is free. However, you are going to, in another 2 weeks, as soon as the next week starts, after 1 week, the Kijun is going to start coming down. Kijun soon is, so you're going to have to be a little careful at that point. If you're aggressive, definitely you don't want to see it trade below the Tenkan here on the weekly basis. Let's look at the daily chart. Daily is coming out of the cloud. Chicago is still in the cloud. It hasn't confirmed the breakout yet. I would definitely want to see it, the Chicago, confirm the breakout of the Kumo. So I don't think it's ready yet. Too many resistances for it to, let's see what's going on. Uh, you have Kumo shadow here, Kumo shadow there. You have a Kumo shadow here. Too many resistances. That becomes the problem with downtrending stock. There become too many Kumo shadows, too many resistances for it to overcome. So you have to be really aggressive. You're fighting the trend, right? So these are very quick trades. You really have to be very careful in these. Target daily chart below the is bearish in nature. At this point, though, well, let's look at the weekly. Weekly, it's inside the Kumo. It's consolidating, hitting the Tenkan resistance. Chicago is free, and your Kijun is not going to move at this point because your lows and the highs are fixed in place for some time now. So there is a chance this one could start approaching 75 area where the weekly Kijun is. So let's look at the daily. So 75 area would be right here somewhere, which you can buy this one strength for a quick trade. Keep in mind you have gap resistance here. This whole area is gap resistance. So I'm very wary of buying stocks with such a gap resistance. You never know when they'll fail. Okay, they can go in here and fail. They can go in here and fail. Any place between this gap is resistance. Okay. So if you want to buy this one, be very careful. Trail your stop. I would use the Tenkan for a trailing stop in this one because the Kijun's way down here. It's going to start moving. The stock starts moving higher. The Tenkan will start moving higher above these levels since these will create the new 26-day highs. It will start taking it up. But again, this is what really bothers me on the stock. This whole area. Okay, so keep that in mind. And which one was LRCX? LRCX, Land Research. Bearish on the daily, so I'm assuming it's bearish here on the weekly. Chicago is free at this point. Notice this guy right there. I had looked at this some time back. There is resistance in this area, which coincides with the weekly Kijun. So you might. So at this point, it looks like you have a good chance to play from 149 to about 159, where the weekly Kijun is. So let's look at the daily. Okay, daily, it still hasn't broken out of the cloud. It's still below on the bearish. If it does break out, again, it's going to be a hit, but keep in mind your earnings are coming out here on 123. Cardinal rule of trading: never trade before earnings. Okay, earnings will that can turn your technicals 180 degrees. So I will not trade this guy because it's earnings time. But if let's assuming the earnings were not here, then I would really want to buy on strength here and sell right there, because that is a heavy area of resistance. Again, keep in mind you are playing against the trend. It's bearish on the weekly. If you're buying up here, your Chicago is still inside this Kumo. It hasn't confirmed the breakout. Okay, breakout is when the Chicago confirms the price. So you are playing a counter trend. Keep that in mind. Okay, a lot of trades fail when they're counter trend. So keep that in mind. All right. Let's see, anything else in here? Ishimoku Kazur suggests some books to understand Ishimoku philosophy in detail. I don't think you're going to find any more. There are other books. If you Google or if you look at Amazon, there's a few more Ishimoku books in there, and I have read all of those. And to be honest, you're not going to find anything more than what you have in that book. So you could buy those. Again, I doubt you'll find anything more in those books that you have not read in my book. Now the course, we go in detail, we look at examples and analyze that in detail. So that's a different story. There's only so much books can do, right? I mean, that's the difference between what can I say? Studying a textbook and going to school, right? Why do people go to school? Uh, you to become really good at something, you learn from somebody. You go to school and learn, right? You go to universities and learn. So that's the difference between a book can only do so much. Um, so Right, let's see. What should be targeted if the stock is near 52-week high? If the stock is near 52-week high, the best way to do it is, again, look for patterns. Um, if you can see like a cup and handle pattern, let me draw. If you do a cup and handle pattern, then if it's approaching the high here, this is the depth of the pattern. You can project it up. That would be your target. You could also do Fibonacci extensions, the 1.38 and the 1.62 extensions. Those act really well. So those, if there is like a ascending triangle pattern, you take this height, you put it up there. That's your target. Okay, so those are the things you do when the stock approaches 52-week high, just to see where it could be going, right? Could you understand you but I'm a novice upgrading quite into Ichimoku. Yeah, I mean Ichimoku, I mean it's a really great system. I use Ichimoku. I mean that's the sole thing I use along with candlestick analysis, gap analysis. Ichimoku is really a really good system to use. Again, as you see, I don't really use any other indicators. Sometimes I do put the 50 and the 200-day moving averages just because a lot of money managers use those. So those are usually on here. I don't have it here right now. But other than those two moving averages, I don't use any other indicators because I really don't need to. Ichimoku is a fantastic system on its own. As long as you understand the subtleties, you're good to go. You really don't need anything else. Okay. All right, that sounds good. So I don't see the price for the Ichimoku course, or am I missing it? Oh, for the course, hold on one second. For the signing up for the course, you go to course schedule here. Course schedule, and you go down here to the Ichimoku system course. That's the price. So that's PayPal. That's the only one thing I accept, PayPal. All right, so I am going to end the seminar here. Hopefully you guys learned something from it, and in case you are interested, I'm going to be putting up the link. It's going to be given the low participation today, unless I get many emails saying that they really want to do it, I'm still going to think about making this a weekly seminar, starting the membership. But if I do, I will post it right here just below this Ichimoku coaching. There will be another section for subscription or membership, which will be $20 a month, which is really cheap. It will be an hour seminar on the weekends. And we will initially start it only for like maybe 2 or 3 months just to see what kind of participation is in there. If it's not worth my time, I probably will skip. But at this point, if I do start it, you will see this. I will send out an email saying that it started. And for those who sign up till the 1st of February, I will put it for $20, and I'm going to change that to $30 a month after the 1st of February. So till 1st of February, you will have the option to sign up for $20 a month. Okay, and that will be locked in. Your price will not increase to 30 ever. So, all right, what is the total duration of the course? Course would be 4 hours. We can always split it into 2 hours per day. We can do it on the weekend, 2 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday, or we could do it 4 hours. I have all the courses I've done for Ichimoku have been done in one sitting for 4 hours, usually 6 to 10 Saturday or 6 to 10 Sunday India time in the evening. So how many sessions would you get? I guess that's referring to, that will be every weekend. So if it's a month, you'll have it on every weekend, 1 hour. So 1 hour we'll do exactly what we did today, go through the stocks, and you'll be able to access whatever stocks you want to get analyzed. So so it'll be $20 a month and on the weekends. So all right, so that'll be it. You guys have a great day, and thanks for coming in. Okay.